I think what you're pointing out here, though, is that it's the second line where it says, with many sub-travelers, and the system bogs down when quoting large job packages. So what I would interpret is that this guy was probably working for a machine shop or maybe a company that buys sheet steel and cuts it into parts to sell. But now they're doing sub-assemblies and they're doing more complex builds, and now it's bogging down the system.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The small job shop market is always flooded with unique software that could be perceived as different from the mainstream ERP systems. The JobBoss 2 system is one example that was created by jamming together the best of E2 Shoptech and JobBoss. JobBoss was known for easy-to-use QuickBooks-like functionality for smaller shops, but had a much superior UX. E2 Shoptech, on the other hand, had robust features, but was behind in its technology. In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of ECI JobBoss's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including the changes in the ECI portfolio and how it might impact the ECI product. Finally, we reviewed its data model and which segment the solution fit the most. With that, let's get to the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show, and Happy New Year, everybody. We are coming after a long time. We had a long break, so this is the first episode of the year, so obviously very exciting. If you are joining for the first time after 400 episodes, this is part of our ERP series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And for today, we have a very interesting solution called ECI JobBoss. Now they have rebranded it, recreated it, and now they call it ECI JobBoss 2. So we are going to have a little debate there in terms of how they differ and the role that they play in the ecosystem. Before we start, we are going to start with everybody's intros. If you don't know me, I am Sam Gupta, your host and principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with the planning, strategy, selection, as well as implementation. On that note, I am going to Andy for his intro.
Well, thank you, Sam, and Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to your cute little boy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Happy New Year to everybody. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for small to mid-sized manufacturers for over 4 decades, which sounds like a long time because it is. I've worked with manufacturers all over the U.S. and all over Canada. And I also teach people how to uncover the truth about ERP systems before you buy, because you know what? I run across so many companies, so many manufacturers specifically, that sat through sales demos, fell in love, bought the darn thing, and a year later found out it doesn't do what they thought, because it's amazing what they can do in a sales demo, but it ain't the truth. So I have a webinar tomorrow actually on the topic. But anyways, it's really nice to meet y'all, and thank you, Sam.
Amazing. So today we are going to uncover the truth about ECI JobBoss 2.
There we go. At least do our best anyway.
Right. All right, guys. So before we start with the our slides, we are going to bring back the memories of the previous discussions that we have had so far related to ECI, as well as some of the other comparable solutions. If you are in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. Typically, we try to cover them during the show. If you run out of time, then we'll make sure that you receive your answers. Just for the first question, if you're in the audience and listening right now, do you guys want to post your locations where you are joining from? And if you have any sort of experience with ECI Job Boss, comment that as well in the comment. On that note, Andy, I am going to start with a little brief. I know that you probably have some experience with this solution as well. So I am definitely interested in hearing those stories. But overall, in my mind, just a quick recap in terms of ECI's corporate strategy, how they are approaching the corporate strategy at this point of time. I mean, let's not talk about acquisitions in 2023 because market is very silent at this point of time. Nobody has cash, and even if they have, they are probably not going to spend it. So not much activity in the ERP world, at least as far as I know. I don't think even the vendors that were really active in 2020, 2021, Epicor, ECI, always Aptean, they are not doing much right now. Aptean as well. I mean, they are a little silent at this point of time. So now, on that note, I mean, we are going to start with their corporate strategy. So as I was mentioning, I mean, they grew through acquisitions, just like Infor, Epicor, as well as Aptean. And their strategy, market strategy, is going to be purpose-built as well, but purpose-built for very different market segment. Okay, they operate in very QuickBooks-like market segment as opposed to slightly bigger companies or the markets. ECI's market is going to be very small. So in general, the kind of products that they have targeted, they are looking for companies that are going to be 50-ish in size or maybe 100 employees in size. So most of the solutions that they have targeted are probably in that category, roughly 5-ish million in revenue, maybe 10, but not more than that. So that's their sort of stretch in terms of the kind of market segment they like to target. Overall, from the solution design architecture perspective as well, these products are very simple in nature. They don't require as much consulting implementation help as would some of the other bigger products. Infor, Epicor, the number of layers you are going to have in these products are going to be fairly smaller as well. Now, Andy, I don't know if you remember anything from last year. When I don't know how much you drank this new year. We all forget whatever we did in the last year. But I mean, we want to bring back the memories in terms of which are the solutions that we have reviewed from ECI's perspective. My understanding is that we have reviewed pretty much everything. This is probably the last one. So my recollection is that we have done ECI M1, E2 Shoptech. I think we have reviewed that as well.
Yeah, we did.
We did. What else did we review from ECI?
There's always, with all these companies that are doing so many acquisitions, there's always going to be stragglers.
Yeah.
That are not as popular. Like, for example, Intuitive is one.
Yeah.
And they probably own a few other ones too, but their main ones you've mentioned. Yep.
Yeah. So overall, I guess, most of the solutions that they have in their portfolio, and by the way, I mean, they have a lot of them from Exact, and Andy, yes. You talk about those solutions a lot. So ECI Makula is going to be there in their portfolio. ECI Max is there. Yep. And some of these solutions were very interesting when we reviewed them. And Epicor has very similar solutions as well in these market segments. So ECI JobBoss has a very specific market positioning in the market. Initially, they were designed for very small job shops. Okay, most of the job shops that I know that were using ECI JobBoss, they were not as big. Maybe sometimes even $1 million in revenue they might be. Okay, that's and right. They typically used in conjunction with QuickBooks. Typically, ECI JobBoss was more of the add-on on top of QuickBooks. Now, my understanding is that they have the accounting module right now.
They do.
But they still have the option. Yes. Let's say if you might be on QuickBooks, then you can use QuickBooks. And that's where sort of lines are gray in terms of what is an ERP. In my mind, the ERP is going to be when your accounting and financial processes are going to be embedded. You are never going to get that
when your accounting system is going to be separate, siloed. That's, in my mind, that's not an ERP system.
But in the demo, it'll look like it does.
Oh, demo, you can show whatever. I mean, see, I have shown DAX, Andy,
I know.
and customer bought it that it's a real product when, there was no product.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So, again, that's why you need experts to evaluate. I mean, see, if you don't have the
experts like Sam, for example. That's what Sam does.
Experts like Andy as well, I guess. But I mean,
no,
somebody.
I'm not an expert. I'm just a pretty face.
Somebody who lives and breathes this space, because the changes are.
That is me.
The changes are happening all the time, even for experts, to be completely honest. And it's extremely hard, even for me. I miss at least 20 things on a daily basis. And again, we are going through so many different cycles, but still. So it's very, 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 very hard and invisible. And then if people are not being honest, it could be harder.
Hey, there's a million systems out there. I mentioned one to you yesterday, Sam, and you'd never heard of it. I never heard of it.
Exactly.
It just, they just keep coming and going,
Exactly. So, so it gets very interesting in this space. So obviously, ECI JobBoss is a very unique solution, okay? Initially, when it started, my understanding is that Exact had developed even this one. It came from Exact. So if you look at the overall quality of the development, the product architecture, it's going to be slightly cleaner compared to the other solutions that you are going to find even inside ECI portfolio. If it is designed by a job shop owner, the architecture design, because they did not study the software engineering, so it could be harder. They might have done everything from their perspective, but that's a very different product design, product architecture in general. Now, the other things that you're going to find with ECI JobBoss, it was very simpler product, as I had mentioned. So now with ECI JobBoss 2, what they are trying to do is they are trying to jam together the best of your E2 Shoptech as well as your JobBoss. So JobBoss was very good cloud native sort of product. They did a little cloud version there for JobBoss just because it was easier from the architecture perspective. And that's why they probably had to kill the E2 Shoptech. The reason for that is technically it was an inferior product. It would be very hard to replicate that in the cloud world. So that's why they had to kill that product, but got some of the features. Obviously, the experience is never going to be the same. Okay, even though you might accomplish similar things, but you are never going to get what you could do in your E2 Shoptech. That's how software design works.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Sam, is that both the Shoptech, E2 Shoptech, and JobBoss were basically targeted at the same audience.
They were targeted, and that's the rationale they had, that both were sort of leading products. Obviously, right now, there are a couple of products that are probably equally leading. Obviously, ProShop is selling a lot in this space. Global Shop rules a lot as well. So these companies are targeting fairly similar market in general.
Yeah, all very true.
Yeah. Okay, so unless you have any other Intel insights, Andy, we can start with the slides.
No, go for it. I'm sure I'll have a few comments as we go through.
Okay, and by the way, thank you so much joining Gage Johnson. Follow him on LinkedIn. Amazing guy. G-A-G-E. I messed up the spelling, Andy. I need better glasses here. Okay, GAGEJHNSON. Follow him on LinkedIn. Now I'm actually going to start with the slides. I don't know, Andy, if you can see.
Yeah, looks good.
The fonts are a little blurry. So here is a little backstory for JobBoss 2. JobBoss 2 was first developed in 1984 by a job shop manager. And, all of the products in this category, they have fairly similar journey, because job shop owner felt that the ERP systems that we have in the market, they didn't work for their use cases. And that's why they sort of started. And sometimes we talk about this aspect a lot. Then sometimes it could be the way their processes are. Sometimes they have not gone through the process of standardization as well as streamlining, and that's why they might feel that they are different from the other industries, other companies. But that's typically not the case. Okay, once you grow bigger, then your priorities are going to be very different. When you are going to be involved with the M&A, when you require the agility in your business model, it's a different ballgame. But when you are a very small job shop, you don't really care. You have a bunch of machines and you are simply producing parts. If that is your priority and you don't know where you are trying to go to from the business perspective, or if you don't have the sophisticated investor investing in your business, then your priorities are going to be very different. So that's where ECI JobBoss plays. So it was started by a job shop manager from the evolution perspective. Now, some more comments here. JobBoss 2, by the way, one thing that I did not mention from the technology perspective, most of these products, okay, they obviously claim that they have cloud version, but they typically don't, okay? So this is probably going to be a single tenant version, which is sort of the fake cloud is what I call. It's not a real cloud. You don't get the benefits of the cloud, but that might be okay when you might be on budget, because cloud
they make it very clear it's private hosting.
And the private hosting could mean a lot of different things, okay?
Okay.
So private hosting could also mean the specialized hosting inside AWS, which is far more expensive than your public cloud. Yeah. So private, okay, so let me step back a little bit. So they are saying private hosting here as opposed to private cloud. And sometimes that could be misleading as well. So when you talk about private cloud, that means you are talking about the one that AWS is going to host it. That means it's almost like, I don't know how to describe this, but it's like going to public place versus a private place for dining, I guess. I don't know if dining is a good example. Andy, maybe you can help me with an example here. So like living in a shared environment with a lot of roommates versus getting a private room. That's probably the comparison.
Yeah, well, like for example, when you're in a condominium or a private or an apartment building,
exactly,
you're all paying rent, and that rent pays for a portion of the maintenance of the building.
Yes,
whereas if you own your own house, there's all kinds of benefits, but you got to pay for the maintenance.
Right, but that is still not the close example, and the reason for that is because in that you still have the privacy. But in
True.
When you are in the private cloud, you are sharing a lot more. You are sharing the whole infrastructure. So nothing is sort of allocated to you. So you are sort of on the shared bandwidth. The right example would be, let's say, and I don't know, Andy, whether you experience this when you are going for any sort of internet connection. There are two options. One is DSL and one is cable. Okay. Yeah. And when you are on cable, sometimes what happens is your internet slows down. And the reason why it slows down is because your community is sharing the bandwidth. Right. Okay, so
there's only so much bandwidth.
Exactly. So now public cloud could mean a lot of different things as well. Let's say if you have 1,000 tenants sharing inside a box, okay, you could get a very different performance than what you are going to get when 10 people are sharing. So private cloud means the capacity is allocated to you, even if you are not going to use it. The whole idea of cloud was there was a lot of unused capacity that could be subsidized. That's the whole reason why cloud exists. In from one aspect, at least from the capacity sharing perspective, and their pitch was that it's probably going to be cheaper than creating your own data center. But I don't know if people believe that or not. The argument is all over the place. And the reason for that is because you, as the owner, let's say if you maintain your own data center, you are never doing Windows upgrade. You are never paying for security. You are hiring interns. So it's not going to be the same cost. Okay. But again, if you don't care for security, you don't need to worry about, you are simply praying that it's going to work one day, then you are good. You don't have to worry about anything. But if you want to,
I don't believe there's anything such thing as ransomware, is there? I think
there's nothing, Andy. That's fake. It's a fake thing. It's all media hype, only for podcasters.
Conspiracy.
Exactly. Fox News.
Fox News. Yeah.
Okay. So again, there are a lot of layers, and you require a ton of expertise to evaluate these things in terms of what is right and whether you are paying for the right thing. The more educated you are, the more informed you could be in terms of what decisions you want to make. You will only come to know when you are going to get ransomware, if you ever get. If Fox News sends you, then you might get.
So to make it very clear, are you suggesting that JobBoss 2 is a single tenant cloud, or is it a multi-tenant?
It's a, let's say, single tenant, number one, but in single tenant also there could be several layers. It's not really a cloud. They are pretending that it's cloud. Let's just say that, it's not cloud. It's not cloud at all. It's the only difference between what they are doing with this is, rather than you hosting and maintain IT, they are doing for you, but that's not cloud. Okay, cloud has a lot of different in
Right.
other benefits that come.
Yes, of course.
And that's why it gets slightly more expensive.
This is kind of like the worst of both worlds. You got to maintain it yourself, but you don't really
Exactly. So in this, you get some benefit that your vendor is doing that.
You got to maintain it yourself. You got to have your malware and everything else yourself.
Yeah.
And all your security software yourself. But they will still keep charging you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
What a deal.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry.
No. Oh, so much fun, Andy. So much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here, we are done with the cloud conversation that always gets very religious and emotional. Let's move to some other things here. So they are saying can take right to a job, start with any type of job in JobBoss 2, single level, multi-level assembly, blanket orders, split jobs, time and material jobs. So they have a lot of things there.
What jobs? It sounds like it does what it does. Yep.
But there could be a lot of layers in that too. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the next sentence where it says full ISO and AS9100 quality offering.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
Well,
because when I lived in the U.S., my specialty was aerospace and defense contractors, which is AS9100.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that's pretty intense quality assurance. And anyways, I'll leave my opinion to myself there.
Again, there could be a lot of layers in terms of what they are offering versus what you are expected to do.
They have an aerospace customer that uses it for that.
Sometimes they might provide just one field and they might claim that they are AS9100, but rest of the things you have to do in your spreadsheet. So is that AS9100? Probably not. But again, the devils is always going to be in details.
Absolutely.
So make sure you are looking at the fine lines in terms of what they are going to do. Any other things? And by the way, they have decent number of installations. So they are installed in roughly 7,000 shops.
I would have guessed they had a lot. They've been around for a long time, and plus it's both products, JobBoss and E2 now making an even larger base. I would have expected more than 7,000.
7,000 is still a very large number for ERP in my mind. For any ERP product.
Yes, but the smaller they are, I understand.
Yeah.
But they're smaller, so they should sell more, right?
Even for the smaller, 7,000 is a very large number for any ERP vendor, which basically speaks for their success that obviously this has been decently successful product.
Absolutely.
Now, some more commentary here. So here, this is the announcement of JobBoss 2. JobBoss 2 will be ECI's go forward cloud-based.
That's an interesting statement.
Yeah.
Because they're publicly announcing that this is their go forward product.
And what does it mean for the customers, Andy? Do you want to describe a little bit more?
Well, we already described. There's half a dozen, if not more, other products owned by ECI. So it's likely, and that's an assumption, it's likely those will be going to be folded into the JobBoss 2 system eventually, so they'll have only one product to maintain.
Well, I don't think that is going to be true. The reason for that is ECI is definitely trying to consolidate, but I don't think they are going to consolidate irrelevant products. So each of the products are targeted for very small micro industry. So I don't think they are taking the approach that your NetSuite or Microsoft is going to take. It's a very different market segment, different appetite for what they can do. They don't really have...
Well, look at M1, for example. There is a huge crossover between M1 and JobBoss. So Macola in a different way. Macola's older technology and all that stuff. But Intuitive, these are all products that have... Intuitive really isn't, because that's more for repetitive make-to-stock type manufacturing. But you know what I mean. There's just they're stating that this is their go-forward product.
So, Andy, we need to think this from the vendor's perspective as well, okay? Some things are going to be easier. Some things are going to be really difficult, okay? ECI M1 has a very different following, okay? They care for different things. The reason why they are on ECI M1 is because they don't like anything else. It's like that cynical world, right? They are very, very, very loyal to that. So it's going to be very hard for ECI to pull off those loyal followers to another product, okay? What they are going to do is they are going to go to the market and find something else that they like, as opposed to going to, and maybe somebody created M1 in 2023. Who knows? There is a possibility always,
right?
Okay?
Or M1 squared.
Exactly. Cloud native.
Cloud native, yeah. There you go.
Right? So there is always a possibility. So M1 is a very different, unique architecture design. Okay,
Isn't M1 targeted at basically job shops and custom manufacturers too?
It is, but it's a very different, design and architecture and different kind of shops. Yeah. It's a tricky market. Now, your comment related to Macola. Okay, Macola is a very different product, and when I say different, meaning Macola does have the traditional ERP architecture, traditional ERP data model, and the reason for that is it wasn't created by a job shop owner. It was created by Exact. So there's a difference in the product. Okay. Now, ECI Macola has very different market.
It wasn't created by Exact. Macola wasn't created. Macola was originally released in the 1970s.
And who had created it?
Well, before Exact, it was Battery Ventures, which is a VC group, but Macola used to be their own company originally, up until around 1990 or so.
Right. So I don't know whether Exact had re-architected it. In some cases, vendors do that.
They did. Right? They did. It was on back before it got purchased by Battery Ventures and then over to Exact. They were starting to migrate it from the old COBOL language and using more of a SQL Server type database, because before it was CI/SAM files.
Right. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is when any software architect is going to create a product, it's going to have a very different design and architecture.
Absolutely.
Just because they have the formal education.
It's like writing a book.
Exactly.
You can't have somebody else writing each chapter.
Exactly. So that's going to, so the most of the ERP products that we have in the market, including SAPs of the world, they go through the software engineering discipline that you are not going to find in the products that are created by the industry practitioners, because they don't have the formal education in the software design, software architecture. They were created for a different need, because I'm not going to go through this education because I don't like it. So I'm going to create a new product that is going to work for my needs rather than learning how software is supposed to work. So it's a different mindset. Again, both approaches are okay. But when you grow, you have to go for the mainstream product, because the bigger companies are always going to follow the software discipline. Unless we kill all that PhD that people are doing and they are not relevant anymore, then it's a different case. But that's not happening, I guess, anytime sooner, because software is hard.
I like their core value, the crave greatness. Nice and short and sweet and impressive.
Yeah, I like it as well, Andy. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Okay, so here, let's talk about some more comments here. JobBoss 2 was also, so they have this integration with Allura, a machine intelligence platform by Data Inventions, which is very interesting. They are able to provide, again, this is not the real-time integration, not really Industry 4.0, but you are going to get some data. Sometimes that is going to be your operational data. So I don't know if ERP is the right bucket for that, but you have some integration, some candy there that obviously they are going to use it as the sales pitch. Okay, now let's go over some more comments here. So this is they are saying if you can still deliver his order on time, even though he has changed the quality twice, ECI JobBoss Professional Edition can give you the answer. So I think the point I wanted to bring in this commentary here is that they are not simply file-based. They do have a professional edition, and that is SQL Server-based, but that requires a very different hardware. So that's what they are trying to tell you here. This is the higher-level product that is intended to be multi-user server-based and requires SQL database for larger data files. So the file-based databases, they had leaner capabilities in general. And sometimes it's not really the problem with the software vendors, because the customers don't really have the infrastructure. So they are going to experience the slowness. So they are going to sell you the leaner version, and it's not going to have the same amount of control. So sometimes you might feel that JobBoss didn't work for you, but it's really your infrastructure. You are not paying for that little computer. And that's the sole reason why they had to sell a leaner. The JobBoss Enterprise Edition is a highly sophisticated solution that takes job shop management to a completely new level. It starts with full data collection, advanced scheduling, material planning, and sophisticated quoting. Mix in in more in-depth reporting. Now, a lot of different terms here. Everybody is sort of using the same term, but what is advanced for JobBoss could be very different for Info or Epicor.
Or what's sophisticated. Yeah, using adjectives to make the modules sound more impressive, but it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. So pay attention to the fine lines in your contract.
Now, it says here mixing in more in-depth reporting. I know that they used to require Crystal. Do you think that they have their own reporting engine now?
No, they still have Crystal, and some users have reported problems in that too. Yeah, they have to.
Okay.
So some more commentary here, and this is coming from Reddit, I believe. I found it. So it says, and this is by the way 10 months ago, so obviously this is a very recent comment. It says ECI JobBoss is my favorite software, but I feel that my company is outgrowing it.
That sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
It does, but I mean, read the details first, okay? So let's read the So they are saying we process roughly 10K to 12K orders per year with many sub-travelers, and the system bogs down when quoting large job packages. So let's do a little math here, Andy, okay? So 10K to 12K orders per year. And when you say order, it could mean a lot of different things in different industries. But in this particular case, I'm going to assume that this is a job shop, a small job shop. And even for job shop, I mean, their order is probably going to be very similar to distributors. In general, you're going to have many lines and their order volume is not going to be as high. Okay. So here they are saying 10K to 12K per year, which means roughly 1,000, which is a very low volume, right? So
exactly. It's not that high volume.
Yeah. And typically the average order size for a job shop, and in your experience, what is it? $1,000?
That's relative, right? It depends on the target they're chasing. But yeah, job shops are usually smaller jobs.
Well, but I mean, they are going to have probably their own rules as well. How much order they are going to process. Otherwise, they probably will not.
I think what you're pointing out here, though, is that it's the second line where it says, with many sub-travelers, and the system bogs down when quoting large job packages. So what I would interpret is that this guy was probably working for a machine shop, or maybe a company that buys sheet steel and cuts it into parts to sell. But now they're doing sub-assemblies and they're doing more complex builds, and now it's bogging down the system.
No, in general, what I was trying to point out, Andy, here is the volume is very low. 10K to 12K orders is very low.
50 a day.
Exactly. And the depth that they have in these orders is not very high either. So, we were thinking about their target market, 5 million, 10 million, dollars. It's not more than that. So if you're going to be more than that, you probably require a different system. So he or she is right that they are outgrowing. That's their place. So if you are in that range, under 5 million or sub 5 million or roughly 10 million, then that's probably okay. But anything beyond that, probably just not right.
Well, it does sound like that. It does imply that they're getting more complex in their builds too, which JobBoss was really designed for simple single level bombs.
Exactly. The depth is always going to be relevant. It's not just the number of orders. It's always going to be, okay, what is the depth?
The complexity of each order. Exactly.
Exactly. So those two go hand in hand. But in general, ECI JobBoss cannot handle very large loads. So obviously there are going to be a lot of different variables. Okay, which version are they using? Which infrastructure is it deployed on? So all of that is going to be relevant, but this is just one data point. So make sure you analyze all of that before you select anything. So here we have some more commentary here. When switching from shop starts to report, the software freezes up, needs task manager to get me out for a reboot. On the quoting module, when quoting large packages, we have found that saving often will keep you from losing the quote. Insanity.
I love that.
Exactly. These have been issues we have dealt with since 2005 with multiple upgrades to infrastructure and ECI updates. That's not good. When you are going to be losing data, that's where my problem is in general. If you're losing any data or data integrity, that's a red flag for me in general.
Yeah, I'd like to know more what they're talking about. It sounds like it's just a Word document that need to save more times than not for the quote. If it crashes in the middle of a save, you lose it. Well, we all know that.
Hold on a second. So they are saying software freezes up and needs task manager to get me out. Okay, quoting module, when quoting large packages, we have found that saving often will keep you from losing the quote, meaning you have to save
When it
multiple
freezes
times.
up, he's saying.
No, you have to save multiple times is what he is trying to say.
Oh, okay.
So basically, just one time save might not work. So I think it sounds like that system has some sort of performance issues and you have to save again and again, and that's the only way. But again, something is not right here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So some more comment here overall in terms of their design. And some of these screens may be older. I think they have released a new version, but these were the only ones available in the demo as well as publicly. So these are the ones that we have picked. But overall design, I mean, we typically like to comment on the design. We don't care. The overarching data model is probably going to be similar, regardless of how pretty your screens are, because it's the underlying product is still going to be very similar in general. So we like to comment on the data model, how weak the data model is, and what implications you are going to see because of that. That's our primary motive when we are reviewing the architecture design of the product. So here we are looking at the job entry screen, and on job entry screen, one of the things that you are going to notice that routing and material are separate. Okay. So there is no sort of correlation. Even if you go on the material screen or the routing screen, you are probably not going to have that correlation. So that's one way of looking at this one. When you look at the product, either they are correlated or they are not correlated. Some of the assembly-centric smaller products, they are not going to have that correlation. Now, does it matter? Probably it does, depending upon how sophisticated you want to be in your MRP processes.
For scheduling, it matters.
Exactly. It's the maturity of your scheduling as well as costing.
If the files are separate, they probably have links, they probably have points where they integrate, but you're never going to have the real-time visibility of the entire shop schedule without having it concurrently scheduled.
And your controls are going to be all over the place as well, because there is no sort of correlation. The operations don't know which material they are affiliated with.
No.
So you cannot really plan for it. Now, you can plan it on paper or a spreadsheet if you like. That's always the case. And you can build these correlations, spend hours, lose millions of dollars in the admin efforts.
A lot of the more sophisticated ERPs can schedule materials just in time. So if you're doing a project that's lasts months or years, it'll suggest you to buy the material on that date offset by the lead time, the vendor lead time. This sounds like it's probably purchasing all the material up front. And you leave it in stock until you use it.
So it has different layers there in terms of how the purchasing works, and we can look at the item screen as well.
Sure.
So the way these guys are going to approach, for the most part, they are not looking at the consolidated demand and consolidated supply. When you get sophisticated in your supply chain planning, that's when, and when you get sophisticated in your MRP, that's when you are going to care for all of those. Most job shops, they don't have a formal education in supply chain. They don't have formal background in doing the supply chain right. They don't really know how to measure these KPIs from the supply chain perspective. So they don't really know how to find money, to be honest. And that's why they are okay, I get a job, I order. I get a job, I order.
And commonly, job shops are purchasing directly to the job. The only inventory they usually stock is when it's a leftover because they bought a minimum quantity from the vendor, which was more than they needed.
Yeah.
Now, I know that JobBoss has done a pretty good job of adding in some better material planning capabilities, but I'm still interested in learning more about that.
Exactly. But I mean, in their mind, they are going to think that their business is different. This is how their business works, because that's what they have accepted as normal. The whole industry, the way it works as, that's how my industry works, and I'm not going to learn new things. So that's where the real disconnect. But if you look at the larger machine shops, those are, run by, let's say, private equity. Okay.
Exactly. Way different.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have some of the other interesting points. For example, you have sort of in the routing, you have the vendor ID mixed at the routing level. That's
with the vendor. Look at that, eh?
Yeah, because the way the whole process is very serialized. Okay, it's very one-to-one. It's not one-to-many.
Okay.
And that's where the problems are going to be. In bigger ERP system, you are going to have a lot more layers. For example, routing is going to have the item correlation, and item is going to have multiple vendors, and vendors are going to have the hierarchy, and that feeds to your MRP algorithm, to planning, to scheduling. That is all not going to be here. Here, everything is just so flat. Which is okay, because obviously you have very limited operational and the IT capacity that is running your server. So you have to make some compromises there. But again, you get what you pay for. This is a very small system.
Small job shops, that's all they need.
Exactly. I agree. And that's why, I mean, sometimes.
Whereas the other systems you're describing would be overkill.
Yes, but I mean, just don't accept that as your business practice. When you are $5 million, $10 million, it might be okay, but when you get to 10, 25, you need to change yourself. So there's a difference. I mean, at each stage, you are going to require a very different mindset in finding the operational efficiency, as well as where to find money in your business. Okay. Anything else here? No. Okay. So other things that you are going to find interesting here is, with the smaller solutions, you are going to get a lot more capabilities in general when it comes to the TMS capabilities. Okay, if you go to the larger systems, the delivery option might not be there. The process finishes as soon as the goods are going to leave the dock. That's their scope. That's their boundary. That's the ERP boundary. Sorry, what's it?
They don't stock it.
Well, stocking is probably not the right term, to be honest.
I mean, once a job is finished, it's shipped. It's out the door of the customer. It's custom.
Exactly. But I mean, you, regardless of whether you are a small business or a large business, you still need to track whatever happens after that. So typically with the larger business, that particular process resides in a separate system called TMS. The smaller systems are going to combine some of those capabilities. For example, when you talk about the promise date, requested date from the delivery perspective, when you are talking about the tracking of the delivery, when you are talking about the dispatch to receive process. Now, dispatch to receive process is a very TMS centric capability that typically resides in the larger system inside TMS. But the smaller systems, for example, this is going to have that. So now, if you are doing the checklist approach, you will find that even though the system is cheaper, it might do a lot more. Okay.
Right. Maybe not as deep.
Exactly.
But it'll do. But it'll do it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's a very different mindset. It's designed for very different audience. Functionally, you might get a lot more, but you are not getting the same depth that you are going to get with the larger systems. And the more sophisticated you become with the planning, scheduling, that's when your larger systems are going to be handy. But $5-10 million is probably okay. So some more things from the costing perspective, and costing also in the smaller space, Andy, I've seen some of the job shops, especially if they are dealing with any of the precious material. Okay, typically they have very different pain point when it comes to costing. The reason for that is because some of these materials could be extremely expensive, and because of that, they probably need to change every single job that might be on the floor. On the spot when that changes, and because of that, you require many different levers that you need to pull when this change is going to happen, and those layers are going to be handy. In this particular case, the smaller systems are not going to have as many layers. Typically, the larger systems are going to have 9 or more layers at each level. Whether you talk about the material, labor, or the overhead, each of them are going to have 3 more layers, which is going to be your fixed variable, as well as the overhead. And each of those layers are going to have a different play in terms of how your costing is going to behave. So the more control that you have, the easier it is going to be when you are working with different materials for which the cost is going to change frequently, and that might have impact on your bottom line. The smaller systems are probably not going to have as many layers in general. So here, the only thing you're going to get is probably just one labor material. There might be some more layers in terms of reporting separate, labor material. But in general, the options are going to be limited. Okay, so here, this is the view of their traveler, and there might be some updates here. But overall, this is where the real play is. So if you look at their description, they are mentioning the material in the text. Okay, so material is not really a field on the operation. Sure, you can probably create a custom field, but that's not the real functionality. When you have the real functionality, it has to be built as part of the process. It has to be part of the system, right? So this is probably going to be a text field that you are mentioning as the instruction. That's okay. But building control around this is going to be extreme. Now to your comment, Andy, okay, ISO. Now, ISO, what ISO wants is everything should be controlled by the system. Okay, that's
right.
what they are thinking in their head. You are producing a report claiming that you have everything.
And everything's documented.
Right. They don't necessarily look at your system, right? I mean, because they don't have time, they don't have bandwidth, so they don't know what is underneath, right? But typically, from their perspective, what they are looking for is you have to have the process control, you have to have the financial control, you have to have the operational control. Now, when you are going to have the text field, there is no way to enforce the control. Okay?
No.
So here they are saying, hey, be sure to check material accuracy before cutting and use material that is designated with spec needed. And here, my guy on the shop floor, Andy, you go and instruct him, and he's going to say, screw you, I'm not going to do that.
Well, do you think that's okay? So you don't think that's coming out of a part master as being an ISO instruction in these circumstances?
So typically, when you look at the larger system, if they are going to have the quality capabilities, the whole process flow is going to be built as part of the system where you need to check. Have you tested?
Right.
If you have tested,
yeah.
okay, what is the reading? Tell me the reading. Now, reading could have other controls, whether reading is accepted or not accepted. So that is what is called keeping that as part of the system, as opposed to having it in the text form. In the text form, when you are floating these papers around, it's up to people whether they want to follow it or not. You don't really have control from the operations perspective, from the finance perspective. And typically, the intent of ISO is to create quality products. You can never create quality products when you are going to have so much variations. Again, smaller systems, you will not get that, and that's why the bigger systems are going to be far more in general. So pay attention to details.
Well, what you mean if you print inspection needs to be done prior to finished mill operation, they might not do it?
Oh, everything is going to be so perfect, Andy. There's nothing that can go wrong in manufacturing. I guarantee you this.
Yeah.
Okay. So now scheduling is always going to be the prettiest, okay? Whether it is going to be functional or not, that's a different case. But it is going to be prettiest. It's going to be visual in these smaller packages, the way they do it. So in this particular case as well, ECI JobBoss has done a wonderful job in sort of providing you the visibility of different jobs. But when you have a very simple operation, just one job, a couple of machines, this could be okay. But when you are trying to find synergies between many different plants, that's a different ball game. So depending upon how complex your operations are, this could be okay for a smaller shop.
Well, that's describing infinite scheduling.
Yeah. I mean, smaller packages, that's what you are going to get. Or they are probably not going to have a real resource identified in the system. So I don't know how fine it can work.
So what is this JobBoss? A shop boss fits right in with JobBoss. What is this?
So this is, in my understanding, is going to be, this is probably an add-on module that they have hooked as part of your JobBoss, and that's very common in general. But this is what is going to be used as the tab. So what they have done is they have sort of plugged or shoved inside the application, but the same thing can be used as the tablet app as well. So ShopBoss, when they are going to be using on mobile tablet, they can use this. So the UI is going to be very tab friendly, mobile friendly. Here they are providing the same application if you need to use inside the application. But the communication is never going to be seamless. Okay, even if it is going to be a pretty picture, because it's a different app, different database probably. Okay. So here, if you don't have any other comments, Andy, we have some more comments. So this is the material screen, and this is where they have option for buy for inventory, which is very common in job shops. Then you have make. So very interesting way of putting these things. Very flat architecture in general. Buy for job, buy for sales order, very common. Obviously, they are going to have revision because they need that. Class is very common. We have seen that in the other products as well.
It's interesting they have radio buttons for buy for inventory and buy for job. You would think they would either have we manufacture it, or else we could buy it to inventory or could buy it for a job.
So they don't have a real MRP, right? So they are taking very crude approach in terms of how this is done. And you probably don't need MRP in a very small job shop.
That's true.
It's probably going to be overkill.
You already know what you need to buy.
You sort of know. For a small operation, you can do whatever you want. You can run your business on Excel. Who cares? As long as you have pretty financial statement. Okay. The MRP here, the only thing you have is probably the reorder point, which is a very basic MRP algorithm in general. So again, you are not going to have as many layers. The devil's always is going to be in details. Here we have some very interesting way of doing things in some of the distribution shops. And Andy, I don't know if you have seen this or not. In courts, they like to combine the lines, without sort of repeating the details. And this is the same thing that we are seeing here as well, where you can combine two different jobs. Again, it's a workaround, but it has been positioned as more of the need in these industries. So here they are saying combined like materials on a pure receipt. So they are combining. Typically, if you are following the MRP processes, you probably don't need this. So this is more of the process re-engineering problem. But in this particular case, this is sort of the need, just because you don't have any other way of doing this.
And by the way, the screen obviously looks older. So this is probably the original JobBoss screen and not the JobBoss 2.
Yeah.
But I'm told the functionality is very, very almost the same.
Exactly. So
it's
again,
prettier. JobBoss 2 is prettier.
Yeah. So typically the way these guys are approaching this as business people, they are never going to care for the technical details and the architecture.
Right.
So typically in the software, there are 3 layers. Okay. You have the front end, you have, and the smaller ones, they are probably going to have just 2 layers. So you have the client, you have the server. So they are changing the client, great, but data model is unforgiving. Okay. So even if you change the face, it's not going to change the data model and the architecture of the product. Okay. So some reviews here. We have had this for 7 years more. And the more we utilize it, the more problems it has. 2017, which is not very old. Now, the problem could be with user or the software. So let's dig into it. So it says the software does not allow for any changes to be made. And if you want to make changes, you have to pay hundreds of dollars. So I think that this jab is on customization. So in my mind, Andy, I don't call these software as ERP software, even though they might have the accounting integrated, everything. But when I look at the ERP meaning you can customize the functionality. The smaller packages, they are more of the apps. They are not really the ERP system. So this is where this is coming from. If you have to customize, you have to go through ECI to be able to customize, because they have not offered as many options. If you need to change the layout, if you need to sort of restructure the processes, you'll not be able to do that. Okay.
Yeah, the only customizing would be true custom code, which is going to impact your upgrade.
Exactly. You have to go in the back end and basically do it and ask developers to be able to code. Even if you're configuring, you still require the consulting help. But the more complex the product, the more consulting help you are going to require. Here, obviously, you have a lot of other limitations. For example, accounting for scrap. That's always a challenge in this particular space. Again, unless you go through the way inventory is supposed to be designed, the way your bombs are supposed to be designed, you will never get these things. For example, accounting for a scrap, the costing is never going to be right. So, again, you're not paying very little money. So whatever you can get, I guess you should be happy about it. But once you can afford, then you probably need to go to a real. Okay. Here they are saying the system will not work for orders of more than 1 line, because if you want to unprocess an order in a second line after the first one was shipped, I think this is a comment on the one-to-one functionality. It's not as fluid, as flexible. That's where I think that the user is leading. So you are definitely going to have challenges. In this particular case, basically the line cannot have its own life cycle. That's where the challenge is. In general, typically, if you look at slightly bigger manufacturing systems, they are going to have the line is going to have a job is going to have its own life cycle that you can control. It's going to have its own BOM. But here, that's not the case, I guess. Okay, some more comments. Andy, do you have anything? I know we have just 1 minute left. I'll cover some. If you have any comment, I'll stop.
Do I have any more? Well, we've only gone 55 minutes, right?
I know, but we are at 6:30 point, Andy. So I guess we started late.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
I'm looking at the real clock.
No, but I understand. Okay, right here it says the reporting is through Crystal, so you were right about that. You know what? The problem, or the fantastic thing about JobBoss and these types of systems is that they're designed to be simple and easy to use, reasonably priced, and easy to implement. But it has to be for a simplistic type machine shop, job shop.
I agree.
Single level, flat bombs, simple. But the problem is that they always try to expand their target market. They start to look at other types of companies. They start to say, well, no, we can do this multiple level bills of materials and scheduling and integrating routings. Let me show you in a demo. And then they trick people. And then that company who buys it doesn't know until a year that it can't do it. So no disrespect to JobBoss at all. It's an excellent little system and it's a great price and it looks really pretty. However, if you have any advanced features or sophisticated or whatever adjective you want to use, they used in those modules earlier in the presentation, speak to companies that are already using it. Find out if what they call sophisticated truly is, or if it's just an adjective.
Yeah, could not agree more. The only comment I'll make there, Andy, on that is sometimes, it's not the vendors, and some vendors are really conservative in who they sell to.
Some are.
To be honest,
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is the customer that is the problem.
Smart ones are. Because they know that if they take on the business that's going to cause them grief, it's going to cost them way more.
Exactly. But here on this one, okay? So let's say if a customer comes to you and they ask, and let's say you are a sales guy, Andy, okay?
Yeah.
And they're not going to believe, okay, if they're asking you to explain, if somebody asks me to explain, okay, tell me the real difference between a JobBoss and Epicor and 4. And I'm like, okay, maybe I know 1, 2, 3 things. And after that, they're going to say, you know what? I don't really believe. Okay?
Yeah.
They're all same. I'm going to buy JobBoss.
Demo.
And JobBoss is saying that, don't buy me.
I already saw the demo. It looked great.
Yeah, they are trying to overcomplicate, and I don't know why they are concerned. So sometimes customers are the problem.
No question. We got to run here, but one of the things that I teach in my webinars, which I like the one I'm having tomorrow, is you can only learn so much, and really it's not very much at all in a sales demo.
Exactly.
Because it takes years before you're fluent.
Exactly.
Talk to people that are already using it and using the functionality that you expect to use.
Exactly. But don't forget to listen to the experts. Even if they are salespeople, they are still the experts. So just don't ignore that.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Andy?
No, it's been fun.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for joining tonight. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our ERP series, for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution on the vendor. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Tom Pierce, who shares why ERP implementation is more of an art than science. Also, the interview with Rob Restovich, who shares his insights into how Industry 4.0 technologies can drive customer experience. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to get you on the next episode of the WBS podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.